night, inshallah. So those of you who are keen viewers of this show will know that in previous episodes, we've discussed a range of topics, including how to get into grammar schools, all the way up to GCSE advice. But today we're going to mix it up a little. So we're doing something a bit different today. So whereas usually I'm accompanied by guests who are still in school and they share their experiences in school life, we have some more advanced students today who will be discussing their degree choices as well as all the extracurriculars that they dabble in their free time. And the thing about these students is that we actually have quite a wide mix of degree choices, don't we, guys? So we have a journalist and we have 2 budding doctors as well. And we also have another guest who will be joining us in the next segment. But the other thing that differentiates all these people is that they all do something quite niche, which differentiates themselves from like other people in their field. And they'll tell you about these experiences later on. And I'm really excited to hear about their experiences, and I hope you guys are as well. But just to get the ball rolling, this is Faiza, and she'll tell you a bit more about herself later on. This is Gabby, and this is Simran.
Hey.
And to our viewers, I'd just like to remind you that if you have any queries throughout, feel free to call the hotline at the bottom of the screen, and we'll be happy to answer any questions you may have. But can I just begin by greeting you guys and saying, giving you a warm welcome, because literally, like, I'm so happy that you guys have been able to make it today.
Thanks for having us.
But Faiza, do you want to start by telling everyone what you're studying, where you're studying as well, and which course?
Yeah, so my name's Faiza. I currently study journalism and I'm studying at Roehampton University. I'm in my 3rd year and I'm graduating this year, inshallah. So.
Yeah, my name's Gabby. I'm 22. I'm studying management this year at Imperial. I normally study medicine at King's, but I've decided to take the year out to come to Imperial for the year, and then I'll return for my last 2 years of medicine after this one.
Okay, and I don't know why I'm acting like I don't know. Gabby and Simran are both studying with me. We're all doing management right now. But Faiza's a bit special. She's doing journalism, so I'm interested to hear about her experiences as much as you guys are. But Simran, tell us about yourself.
Thank you for having me on the show firstly. And my name is Simran. I'm 22 and I'm studying at Imperial, and I'm in my 4th year, also taking a year out to do an intercalated Bachelor of Science in Management, and then going on to finish off medicine with two more years to go, and then I'll graduate.
And like one thing that I'd just like to clarify is, so Simran and I have been studying medicine at Imperial for the past 4 years, but the thing is, in your 4th year, you take a year out and it's compulsory. So it's embedded within the course where you take a year out and you do an intercalated degree. And this can be like psychology, anatomy, anything really, but we chose to do management for reasons Simran will explain later. Whereas with Gabby, she's at King's and that's a 5-year course rather than the 6-year course that Simran and I are doing. So she's taken a year. Oh, sorry, 6 years. She'll explain later on. But she's had to take a year out because management is not integrated within her course, so she's come to Imperial, right?
Yeah, that is right.
And do you want to tell us why you've chosen management specifically?
Yeah, so I wanted to do something a bit different. I want to challenge myself and learn something other than medicine. Like having done 5 years already in medicine, I thought like I might as well broaden my horizons a bit and learn what else is out there. And having management skills is important as any doctor, no matter what speciality you go into. And I thought that it would be a good skill to learn.
Agreed. And how have you been finding it so far?
It's intense. I've learnt so much already. I've learnt definitely how to balance my time. We've got loads of group projects always on the go, but I do really enjoy it. And I'm actually able to have conversations with my dad. He runs his own business, and we're able to have way more conversations than I could have before. Normally the topics would just go over my head, but now I can actually keep up with the conversation and talk about tax and interest and businesses and overheads and all the things that like I never even knew existed before.
I feel like I've gained some more brain cells as well this year. Literally, I felt like I was so narrow-minded, tunnel-visioned with medicine, because all you see is science, and actually taking the year out to do something a bit more entrepreneurial is quite refreshing.
New. I actually didn't know that it has that much in-depth.
Yeah, even like if you're on the tube now, I'll look at the tube adverts and I'll be like, how that's actually like supposed to make me feel as a consumer.
Yeah, because we do marketing right now. So, yeah.
Like, have you noticed that in your everyday life?
Exactly, like, you know, when we're studying medicine, like last year, you were in this medicine bubble, as you said, and you know, doing management has really popped that bubble for me, and I've just gotten to know so much about different companies, and I feel like when I'm talking to my non-medic friends, I can relate to them on a different level, which I felt like I couldn't do when I was studying medicine. And like, you know, when they talk to me about companies that they're going to interview with, I know what the company's business strategy is now. And it's really nice to actually have that. Definitely.
That's quite interesting because you can add marketing to journalism as well, so it's something that we can connect with, but I didn't know that you guys could do something like that, so that's pretty cool, to be honest.
It's one of our modules. We do we dabble in a bit of everything, so we have a bit of accounting, a bit of business strategy, a bit of marketing. Like, we do a lot of things, but so there's a lot of scope, but not as much depth, because we're obviously cramming 3 years into 1 year this year. So it's a lot of work. But Faiza, tell us how you found journalism.
Journalism is quite a struggle, to be honest. It's quite intense, but it's a lot more structured than I thought it would be. So there's not a lot of free flowing going on. So for example, when it comes to features or news stories, I don't get to do that as much until I actually graduate. So we get the certain essays that we have to do are quite structured. We have to add theory and so on. But like you said, we get to learn about how marketing works, social media. So being in that kind of realm and studying journalism kind of opened up my perspective when it comes to different realms of journalism. So for me, it's a big eye-opener, to be honest. You learn a lot.
And is it what you expected? So as an A-level student applying, I want to know what actually drew you towards journalism, and when you actually got in, did it live up to your expectations, or were there any surprises?
From when I was quite young, I've always wanted to do journalism. It's something I've enjoyed doing. As you might know, I've loved writing all my life. So for me, it's like, yeah, journalism has always been a thought in my mind. But when I did go into studying journalism, I didn't initially think it would be the way it is. It is quite structured. Like I said, it is quite formal. You need to understand how journalism works, the ins and outs. And there is a censorship to a certain extent, which you need to learn about and understand. So for me, it was a big eye-opener, but I do love it. It's a learning point, it's a learning curve. You need to kind of understand the theories before you understand journalism.
Do you feel like your lecturers steer you towards thinking in a particular way, or do you feel like you actually have, you know, you're able to interpret things as you wish?
I would say my lecturers are actually really wonderful people. Like they allow you to kind of be free with what you do. For example, for my final actual presentation, I have to make a magazine. So that's like me coming up with my ideas, my own production. So we get that kind of freedom, but it is limited because you do, again, need to apply theory to everything you do. So again, it's kind of like both ways. It's quite,
Going to come back to that in 1 second. Can I just remind all viewers that if you have any questions about journalism, if you want to study journalism, if you want to study medicine or even management, just call on the hotline at the bottom of the screen and these lovely ladies will be more than happy to answer. But Faiza, you said that you had to write a magazine, and I know that you've been doing some work for a magazine on the side, right?
I was previously working for Modestrove, so they're an e-commerce company which I worked for. It was really good in terms of I kind of learned how marketing and fashion kind of came into play. I also was able to write a few articles and kind of control their social media. So for me, it wasn't. It was more of an e-commerce and business side of things than a magazine. But next month, inshallah, I'll be starting my official job somewhere, which I'm not going to say anything just yet.
Okay.
But it's a big step for me, and I'm really excited, to be honest.
Well, I'm excited to hear about that. You can tell me after the show when these guys aren't watching. And what about Gabby and Simran? So I want to know about, is medicine what you expected it to be, or were there any major surprises or turning points? Simran, you can start.
So for me, medicine, the reason why I wanted to study medicine is because it kind of has the whole helping people and the science, my love for the sciences. And when I came into studying medicine, it was exactly that. You know, at Imperial, like, you have a lot of science orientation in the first 2 years, and in the third year, it's very clinical. But you know, like, between first and second year, I felt like I was lacking that, you know, patient contact at first, and that's the reason why I really wanted to study medicine. So at first it was difficult, you know, just going through the sciences, and having that end goal was like a bit difficult in that sort of period of time. So in third year was the year I was like, yes, this is exactly why I'm doing medicine. So I think, you know, the first 2 years is always really hard because, you know, you're away from your family, you're trying to cope with that in like a, you know, new environment and new learning ways as well, and techniques and methods. But, you know, in third year is where I really like started realizing, you know, this is what I came to do medicine for. So yeah, it was a bit of both. So I knew it was going to be very science orientated, But then again, you know, we had the patient contact in the third year, so.
That's something that resonates with me as well, because as I said, Simran and I have been studying together for the past 4 years, and literally third year was when you realise this is why I'm studying medicine. Like, it was a nice break to get out of the lecture theatre and actually be in hospitals, be on wards, interact with patients, actually feel like you're learning to become a doctor. And it's a lot more motivating to do well as well, because you think, I'm doing this for a reason. Everything that I'm learning now is to become a good doctor and to help people, right? Yeah. And what about you, Gabby? How's it been at King's?
So it's a similar sort of structure at King's as well. Like the first 2 years were preclinical, so that's all in the lectures, and you have dissection and you have tutorials and practical stuff, but it's never anything on the hospital wards. You have a few GP placements here and there. And so it kind of, exams became a game, and it was more like a memory test rather than actually applying the content to patients. And I do think that is still important though, because you need to get the foundation solid before you're unleashed onto real people and with real diseases.
I like that.
We actually are unleashed. And then when you get to third year and you've got the stethoscope around your neck, like literally I didn't want to take that off.
Like the boss, don't you?
I was wearing it, like even when I went for lunch, like I had that around my neck and like the white coat.
Feels so official. That's
Yeah,
so nice.
you do feel official. But they've changed the curriculum now at King's, so they do introduce clinics earlier on, which I think there are definite perks to that as well. So clinics are introduced from like the second year, and if like the viewers wanted to check out more information, then the website's like the best places to look for.
Okay, and can you tell us a bit more about your journey into medical school?
Yeah, so I came from a state school in North London, and then I did GCSEs and I did A-levels. I made sure that I checked like I had the right biology and chemistry grades before like I decided to commit. In terms of my journey, I think it was pretty, like, me and my friends were all trying to go for, like, the same medical schools, and it's a very competitive process. My family members, they're not medical in background. My parents are both hairdressers, and I don't have any family that are doctors or medical, so I found accessing work experience quite difficult. But I just made sure that I emailed a ton of consultants. I'm sure you can relate.
Yeah, I don't have any medical in the family either.
Yeah, I completely resonate with that as well.
Guys, can you just hold that thought, please? Because I think we've got a caller on the line.
Great.
Okay, so Assalamu alaikum, caller. Can you hear me?
Wa alaikum salam. Yeah, I can.
Okay. Assalamu alaikum. Can you please say your name and where you're calling from?
My name is Shabir. I'm actually a medical student as well. I study with Gabrielle, but at King's College.
Oh, you're Gabby's friend, I hear.
Oh my gosh.
Go on, Gabby, do you want to take over?
I'm good. How about yourself?
I'm good.
Okay, so Gabrielle, my question is, how are you finding the environment at Imperial, and how's it different to King's?
Be nice. We're listening.
Imperial medics in the
We've got
room
you surrounded
here.
and we're armed.
Oh my god, I can't believe you actually phoned in. Obviously, like, I've got to stay loyal to King's, do love King's, but Imperial is a nice, refreshing environment. It's like different. It's like different because Imperial is like a science and medicine university. Everyone is working extremely hard. Obviously at King's everyone works extremely hard as well, but it's just different, the people that you you interact with. Yeah, but I do really enjoy both.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah, that's a pretty political answer. I appreciate that.
Oh my gosh.
Very diplomatic answer, isn't it?
Yeah. Got to be careful what I say.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. But yeah, awesome job on the show. I'm really enjoying, your the stream, the live stream. So yeah, good stuff. Keep it up. I'll watch the rest of the show.
Thanks.
Thank you for calling.
Yeah, no problem. Bye.
See you. Assalamu alaikum. But also, guys, we have a new guest now, Fatimina. She's been able to join us. Thank you for gracing us with your presence, fashionably late.
Looks good though.
Do you want to just tell our viewers what you're doing right now and your just a general educational background?
So in terms of background, I've done biochemical engineering. So I've done an MEng, Masters of Engineering, did a year abroad with it at the University of Toronto, I know, that's in Canada. And then got back, they were doing like some really cool research with like heart, like just like really cool. They were growing hearts in a lab, and they were just doing all these
Is
things.
it stem cell research?
Stem cell research. And so I was just like, you know what, I want to come back and I want to do something like it. And then I came back to UCL. Sorry.
We're rivals, by the way. Imperial and UCL are like known rivals.
It's not bad.
It's not that bad, I'm exaggerating.
But yeah, no, and I just felt like, you know, I had to come back to UCL because it was like back to my home. And then I decided to take a PhD in regenerative medicine, so trying to use stem cells to fix the broken heart. I finished in 2018, July 2018, so like it's kind of recent.
Congratulations.
Oh, thank you. And then I just thought that I wanted to gain more skills, and so I've decided to enroll into coding because I wanted the tech and the med and the engineering.
It's a good combination, yeah.
It's a good combination. And then in terms of like when you come out of a PhD, you're very independent. You're very much like, I know what I want to do, and you're more of a leader in that sense than someone who wants to work for people. It's not a bad thing. It's just you've worked independently for about 4 to 5 years to a point where you're like, you know, I want to do my own thing. And so that's what I'm thinking about now, starting my own startup. I don't know what I'm about yet. It's going to be very sciencey. But I'm trying to get all these skills. And in the meantime, I've got a band, so I do jazz singing, I do modeling, and a couple of other things.
I told you she's cool.
Yeah. A couple,
Oh, very interesting. So I told you guys, like, we have a lot of hidden talents in our guests tonight. But I think we have another caller now, guys. So, Assalamu alaikum, caller. Can you hear me?
Tasneem?
Yes, Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam. It says your mama, Abdul Mukid.
Oh, Assalamu alaikum, Mama. I love you.
Walaikum salam. I just wanted to say that including yourself and your guests, are all very inspirational and a kind of beacon for the youngsters that are coming up after them as well. So just, you know, it is amazing to see so much talent and so much passion and enthusiasm coming from each and every one of you. So well done, keep up the good work, and I'm very, very proud of you all.
Oh, he's going to make me cry. Thank you so much, Mama. Literally, that's like one of my favourite people out there. Why would you do that, Mama? You know I'm going to get emotional. No, I'm fine.
I'm going to hang up now.
Okay, sorry.
Walaikum salam.
Okay, anyway, let's just move on. And Faisa, do you want to tell us about any barriers or difficulties you faced in the journalism industry? I know it's very early on.
There's quite a lot that you need to kind of understand when it comes to being in the journalism field. It's predominantly Caucasian, so you kind of have to go through things in a different light. You kind of have to understand that you're going to get a lot of rejections. With me, I don't have as much experience as I want, so I'm constantly kind of growing, constantly grinding. You have to start from the bottom. Like, I'm sure you can relate. When it comes to the media field, you see how difficult it is. So
Very
I kind of,
cutthroat, isn't it?
yeah, I kind of want to encourage young girls to kind of get into the media field. When it comes to like Asian girls, African girls, we kind of need more of that diversity, and it's not seen a lot in the media. So we're kind of trying to break through that, and that's kind of what I want to do. It's difficult, but I'm getting there. So,
no, inshallah.
yeah,
And
inshallah.
like you are very inspirational, you know, being at the forefront in this generation, doing something that a lot of, especially young Muslim girls, ethnic minorities don't really do.
I think for me, it was more so the kind of, I wanted to show Afghan girls that it was possible, because I have seen like a lot of Afghan girls be discouraged when it comes to getting into the media because they don't want to shame the community and so on and so forth. But for me, it was kind of like when I had that support from my family and my friends, I knew like this is what I wanted to do, and I wanted my voice to be heard, and inshallah, that's the plan.
And it's the way you go about it as well. You can still enter the media field whilst still, you know, keeping your, you know, your principles and
of course,
sticking to your, you know.
I think people need to understand like technology is growing. You need to, I think for the youngsters, I want to remind you like social media technology is growing so much. You can do so much with it, even when it comes to like, for example, medicine marketing. You can do so much with social media, and we kind of need to remind young girls to kind of step out of their boundaries and kind of do something they love while keeping their principles, you know?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And speaking about social media, I know that you are a famous blogger.
I'm not
She's
famous.
my famous blogger friend, guys. She's my famous blogger friend. And do Do you want to tell us a bit more about that? Like, what are your main messages to, you know, the young girls out there?
So I'd say I've been on Instagram for about 7 years, probably proper blogging for about 4 or 5 years. That's where I met the lovely Fatimina, and it was such a pleasure meeting her. But with social media, I've come to kind of grow my platform through poetry and my writing and my images. I mainly focus on my poetry because it's something I love and I'm in touch with, and I feel like my audience members and supporters can connect with my writing. So for me, Instagram grew through and flourished through my poetry, and I'm very grateful, to be honest. I wouldn't be there if it wasn't for people that supported me.
I can tell it's something that you hold very closely to your heart.
Yeah.
And we'll talk a bit more about that afterwards, because Faiza will tell us a bit more about her poetry book that she's recently launched.
Okay.
Don't be shy.
But Fatimina, you're also part of the, you know, the social media kind of industry. So do you want to tell us a bit more about your messages to young girls out there?
I mean, for me, going back to like the PhD and the sciences, there is not much diversity, and the higher you go, the less diversity you see.
Definitely.
But then the thing with me is that I wasn't just, and it's never that I've never seen myself as, oh, okay, I'm a girl of color and I'm wearing a scarf and this and that. It just happens that the treatment is always different. But then in addition to that, I was doing all these artsy things, and so I wasn't really taken seriously for doing all of these things. So it was always like,
how did you?
It was very much of, you know, why are you wasting your time doing this? So I was a person that would stay in the lab until 12 a.m., 4 a.m., 7 a.m. I would sleep there, like literally, and I had my times and everything. But it was always like, oh, why are you singing? Why are you performing? Why are you doing this? I was doing a lot of extracurricular activities and so on. And so I found myself in a very toxic environment in that sense. So I decided to launch my social media channel. And at the same time, I've started doing a lot of science communication. I've started winning awards. So the girl that wasn't all that was actually winning awards, going with her PhD and still doing all these other things, which I do not regret, by the way, because I feel like I came out of my PhD with more dimensions than just being a one-dimensional person.
Course.
Yeah.
And in the sciences, you just see so much of that. And
It's
I felt
true.
That is so true.
So true.
Isn't it?
We've
And
seen so many robots, because we're at a
Exactly.
science and tech, you know, university.
Yeah.
King's is a bit more diverse, but even on your campus, it's mainly scientific community, isn't it? So it is nice to see like multifaceted individuals who are actually human.
And a lot of the people in science are multifaceted. It's just that, you know, I had friends
They
of
don't
mine
channel it
that were
properly, yeah.
They don't channel it, and you know, they just give it up. And what I found for me is that the more of these extracurricular things I was doing, the better scientist I was being, because I was able to feel comfortable in front of hundreds of people explaining my work, you know. And if you're able to explain your work, it means that you're actually understanding it.
And you think in a more
And-
abstract way.
And you're thinking you think in a different way. And I mean, there was like a study by Cambridge University, but you know, don't quote me on that. But you know, it said, you know, that diverse groups are more likely to succeed than groups that are not diverse. And when it comes to, you know, and when it comes to diversity, we're not just talking about background or where you come from and everything, but you as a person, what else can you bring?
Yeah.
Because I finished my PhD, right? And the people that are not within the PhD area, they'll be like, oh, it's amazing, it's an achievement. But then you apply for a science company, and so many other people have a PhD, and then they have an MBA on top of that. And so what else is making you stand out? And so I've started this social media channel where I was like, you know what? I am a scientist, but I'm a jazz singer as well. I'm an artist as well. I am a, you know, writer as well. And you can be anything that you want to be if you put your mind into it. And until now, this is something that I'm doing. This is something that I'm pushing. So even having finished my PhD, I don't want to stop with the media. It's something that I want to continue, the music, the arts, the everything. But I also want to continue with the science, because I feel like this is from a movie. I don't know if you guys ever watched it, but oh God, what was he saying? He was saying that, you know, medicine and law and all these things are things I should be very proud of, but the arts are what make you or keep you alive, keep you going in life. So I just feel like we all have these two different sides of us, and based on the way society is built, you're just forced to choose one or the other, but I don't think that's how it should be. Like, I actually feel like the more things you encompass and the more you succeed in life, to be honest.
It's quite difficult to actually marry the two and, you know, manage to fit everything within your busy lifestyles and schedules. But on that note, we are now going to cut for a short break. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you soon, inshallah. Assalamualaikum everyone, and welcome back to Pathways. So in the first segment, we discussed a variety of interesting things where each of these lovely ladies told us about their background. So we know a bit more about Faiza and her journalism. We know a bit more about Fatimina and her PhD that she's recently completed. And we also know a bit about Simran and Gabby, who are currently studying medicine, but also management this year. But I think it will be beneficial for our viewers to know how to actually get into medical school, because it is a question that year upon year, a lot of students ask, but they don't have the contacts to actually tell them about these things. So Simran, do you want to tell us about the medical school application process?
So I'll talk about my journey personally.
Okay.
So I came from a comprehensive school where even applying to medicine was too far out of your reach. And to go from that to actually being in medical school, I feel like I've done my parents proud and even myself proud. And I think just general advice is work hard. If you're passionate about this, and if you're passionate about anything in life, you can get there if you work hard. And for me, it wasn't very easy finding work experience or even getting someone to look at my personal statement. I'm the first generation of my family to go to university. So it's a massive thing, right? But if you work hard and if you're persistent, the internet has so much to offer. If you just do a quick Google search on how do I write a personal statement, what will make me stand out, and look at university pages, whether it be King's, Imperial, or any other university you want to go to, and look at what they're looking for. So I know Imperial are looking for people that work in a team, leadership qualities, communication qualities, and try to integrate that into your personal statement. And also at your interview, be yourself, because I feel like you're an ambassador for yourself and you've come this far and they really want to know who you are as a person. And the more unique you are and the more yourself you are, the better it is, a chance you have of getting in. Because they'll see through the monotonous, being I really want to get into medicine because I love sciences. And
the typical one is I love science and I love people. Everyone says
people.
that. If you want to apply to medicine, don't say that.
Yeah. And everyone says that, but have your own reason. If you have a story, tell your story, because this is your time to shine. This is your time to tell these people that you deserve to have me at your medical school. So I feel that would be what I did, and maybe and that worked, so maybe give it a try.
No, definitely. And they do want to see that you're a human being, with feelings, with emotions, that you're not just this robot who who can write essays, who can get the grades. So that's definitely something to remember. But I think, Gabby, you applied through a different route, right? Mm-hmm. So what Simran and I did was we applied through the typical traditional route that most people do. So Gabby, do you want to explain why yours is different and how it's different?
Yeah. So as Taz mentioned earlier on in the show, I'm on a 6-year programme, and you get the same degree at the end of it as MBBS, Bachelor of Medicine, Bachelor of Surgery, but the first year of medical school is split into 2, so Part A and Part B, and that just means that the workload, as we know, med school is hard and it's a lot of work, so it just eases you in nicely. And the reason for this particular programme is that it targets students from particular socio-economic backgrounds. So in my year, they were only accepting students from London. Now they've expanded it, and the criteria can be found online, but I'll explain a little bit. So it's from certain socio-economic backgrounds. You have to be the first generation to go to university, and you have to come from certain state non-selective schools. Now they're doing it by postcode as opposed to the particular area code of your school. So if students want to get a better idea about criteria, online is the best way. Or phoning up admissions, to be honest. They deal with the applications all the time, they're the experts. So if in doubt, just give them a call, to be honest.
I think if anything, the route that you chose is more competitive than what we did, isn't it? How many places were there available?
Yeah, so there was only 50 places available at the time for my year. Now they've expanded it, so it's 75. So I think, it is a competitive process. How it works, it's the same as other applications. So you just write in a personal statement, do all the same work experience everyone else does, and then you submit it through UCAS, and then you'll get given an interview. Mine was an MMI, and now all of the interviews offered, whether that be the 4-year, which is the postgrad course, the 5-year standard programme, or the 6, they're all MMIs now. And that's just when you're put into different stations for about 5 minutes with a different examiner, and they'll give you different questions. So it could be, I can't disclose what the questions are going to be
top secret information.
I can't do that. Sign a contract about that. But essentially, it's just 5 minutes to sell yourself, and then you're given different examiners in each booth. So it's a chance to start afresh. And I think that actually made me less nervous because I was like, I'm only in here for 5 minutes. If I get too nervous, start digging a hole, like it's over and it's a clean slate and it's on to the next one. So that did put my mind at ease.
I think like that's where we vary a bit, because I had an MMI because I think when I was applying, I applied to places like I did St. George's, Imperial, Barts, and whereas Barts and Imperial had the typical panel interview, St. George's had the MMI. And I remember I went to the MMI, but I was like, I didn't really enjoy it because you felt like just as soon as you were building a rapport with the interviewer, like you had to leave after 5 minutes and go on to the next station. So I think whilst it's good at assessing, you know, your capabilities to deal with different tasks under time pressures, I like being able to, you know, build a rapport with a panel of interviewers, talk to them, bounce off them a bit. You know, it has its own benefits.
Yeah, it depends on personality, doesn't it?
Like,
I really like my King's interview, and I really like my Imperial interview as well. And I think I just got lucky with like the King's interview because like everyone seemed really nice. But I remember one station where it was like describing something, and I feel like the interviewer kept pushing me, and I was like, I felt like I wasn't doing it right, and like but you know, you have the opportunity to come out after those 5 minutes and then just be like, okay,
that's what
you
I like
start,
about
you know, I can like sell myself again to like the next interviewer. And say like if you have 6 stations, that's only 1 station out of like 6, right? That you might have like messed up on, or you feel like you have, or like the interview is just like, you know, pushing you to do a bit better than what you've done. So like you have an opportunity, you have 6 opportunities in my opinion, like to, you know, have a go at it again. Whereas like, again, as you said in the panel, like it's a chance to build that good rapport. Like I remember like laughing with some of my interviewers at my Barts interview, and I felt like it was like a really relaxed atmosphere. And I really enjoyed that as well. But I remember my Birmingham MMI interview. Oh my God, that was, I do not want to recall anything from that.
Yeah, we all have an interview like that.
Yeah, I think everyone does. I came out and my like back was sweating. I was so nervous after one of the interviews.
And I think for me, Birmingham was my first interview as well. So I felt much more nervous going into it. So, you know, like the more you do, the more comfortable you feel in the environment again. Definitely. So like I recommend for anyone who's planning to apply to medicine, and if you've got an interview, practice with anyone you can find. Literally, give
in front of the mirror, even
in front of the mirror, or give your mum a set of questions, like, and just record yourself, and you know, really analyze like how you answer the question, how you come across, and I feel that, you know, that will be a really good source of like self-critique and improving yourself and developing yourself in an interview situation.
That's
definitely
true. And I think confidence is just the main thing. Like you see so many students and they go in and they're nervous and they just don't sell themselves enough, and they've got the potential as well, but they just don't, the nerves get the better of them.
I know.
And that's what happened to me in my first 2 interviews. Like I went in, I was nervous, I was like rambling all over the place, like my sentences weren't coherent, they weren't
neither were
sense.
mine.
Yeah. And I just remember that the interviewer like felt so bad for me. I could just see he was kind of like laughing along, like he didn't know how to react. And I think if you just go in confident, and there's a saying that we learned recently, and it was like, you can't solve a problem with the same set of eyes that you created it with. So I think in like an MMI or even an interview, use that technique to just take a breath and just kind of think clearly and think about your answers. Because if you start digging and you're like getting flustered and you're going down the same trail of thought, like you can't think and just pause. There's nothing wrong with saying, sorry, do you mind if I just collect my thoughts?
Exactly. I was just going to say that, you know, even if you don't know the answer to something, like just say, oh, can I have like a minute to like, you know, gather my thoughts?
Yeah,
there's
nothing wrong with that.
And there's nothing wrong with that. And I feel like the interviewers appreciate you more for doing that rather than like, you know, jumping straight into things. Because even as a doctor, you know, there's some situations where you like, even if you jump right into it, you won't be able to see the full picture.
Yeah.
And so I feel like
artificially just pausing before every question.
Oh my God, that's so true.
They'll be like, she's thinking about it, or he's thinking about it.
Yeah. Was it artificial for you? For me, I was thinking, oh my God, what do I say? Am I going to say something stupid?
You know, for some things, like, you know, when they asked me why medicine, I had a list of like, you know, bullet points for what I wanted to mention in my why medicine answer.
Yeah.
But, you know, just thinking about it and not sounding over-rehearsed or, you know, something that you've memorized.
Yeah.
You want it to sound as organic as possible. And like I said, you want it to sound as yourself as possible.
Yeah, authenticity is key, and you do need to step out of the box sometimes. Just reevaluate, how am I coming across to these people, and don't, if you think like you're saying something that and you're not liking the way it's going, literally take a breath, say, can I start over? Can I take a few seconds to think? And there is nothing wrong with that, as we've said. But let's talk a bit more about your actual experiences in medical school. So Simran, what are some of the extracurricular activities you've been involved in?
So last year I was Vice President of Indian Society, and for the last 3 years I've been really involved. And basically, before I started university, I didn't really dance or anything. I was into like different things. I used to play badminton. And when I came to university, I was like, okay, you know what? I need to step out of my comfort zone, do something, develop myself. So I got into Indian Society and I started dancing. And for me, like, my mom was like, you can move like that.
You're not rigid?
Yeah, you're not rigid. And it was like an amazing experience. And year on year, I saw myself improving. And I remember for like the last show I performed in, like my dad came and saw me and he had a tear in his eye, like seeing me on the big stage. And it was like just such a moment, you know, like for me and for like my family to see me doing something that I'd never like done before, dabbled in. I loved doing it, and like even now, even though I'm not as much as involved in Indian Society now, I still go to dance classes, you know, on the during the weekdays. I went to one yesterday, and I'm still like hurting from it, but you know, it feels good, and that's what I've been involved in during my time at university.
And you do need to take a breath, like, you know, a break from medicine and actually do other things, and that goes back to what you were saying about, you know, having to, you know, branch out of what you're used to and exploring your different facets and making sure that you don't become this robot who just thinks this is my designated route, I have to stick to this. Yeah. And so tell us a bit more about your PhD and any barriers you face or any difficulties.
I mean, the biggest barrier was trying to be myself, to be honest. I think within the sciences and engineering, it's one of those things where you don't want to stand out as a person. You don't. Like this is how it works, right? It's about, you know, your skills, your technical skills and everything. Yes. But there is this thing where, you know, if you're a bubbly person or an open person, you don't really see much of that. But I don't think it's because there are not enough scientists or engineers that are like that. I just think that, you know, you just molded to be like that. You know, like I had
conformity.
Like it's just the way it is. But, you know, going back to the extracurricular activities, I think that's really important. It's one thing that you realize, like in undergrad, when I was doing undergrad, you know, it was very much, you know, the grades, the this, the that. But the further you go, the more you realize that that's still important, but you also need to do other things. I mean, you could have like a 2-1, but you could have all these other skills, and you may go forward more, like, you know, you may go further than somebody who just had the first but's got nothing else to offer. Do you know what I mean? Like, when I was doing undergrads, I was doing like 9 to 10 societies, and I was very active in all of them. I would not advise to do that, but I have learned so much. I've learned so much about myself. And then now, going back to it, I wouldn't regret any of that. Like, I wouldn't go back. So it's just one of those things that people need to realize, that it just goes back to the, you know, to the whole diversity thing. When it comes to journalism, when it comes to medicine, you know, I'm sure as well, like within medicines and everything else, you finish your 6 years and then you start I know a bit about it, and then you start your F1 and F2, and then, you know, you keep on going, and then it's always like, you know, how am I going to stand out? How am I going to stand out? And if you hide the person that you are and the passions that you have, just remember that it's not going to get easier as you go further. So you rather go further by being yourself and by doing all these other things that you love than not. You know, you may be like, I'm going to have time later on. But that's not true, because when I was doing my PhD, I didn't have time, but I was making time. It wasn't about the quantity of time that I was spending. I had friends that were in the lab from 7 a.m. until 12 a.m. right? But I was very efficient. I was doing parallel experiments rather than doing one experiment at a time. Yes. I was being more creative with things. And the reason why I was being creative is because I also had a creative background, which they didn't have. With them, it was very much black and white. With me, what happens if I add this and that, you know? And when the students used to come, even the students that I used to not supervise, they were always excited when I was talking about my project, because I was always talking about the bigger aspect and all these creative things, and what if you could do this and what if you could do that. And that's what science is. It's almost like being a child for the rest of your life and being able to play with all these things and, you know, helping people at the same time. But a lot of people forget that, and, you know, they end up working for people. Like, you know, you may finish your PhD, you end up doing the most technical thing at the very bottom of the company, and it's really sad because you have all these amazing skills that she's not been able to get out there.
It does definitely make you more attractive as, you know, as a prospective employee. You know, employers are obviously going to be looking for people who have practical skills, you know, within the workplace, can talk to people, can, you know, you have to start thinking about what is your value added to, you know, to an institution, to a workplace. Yeah, so no, that's definitely very true. And speaking, I think we need to talk a bit more about your poetry, Faisal. So do you want to tell us a bit more about that and writing your first poetry book?
So for me, this was back in 2017. I wrote my first poetry book. It was very difficult kind of juggling university and kind of organising this event. So I was finishing the book while I was organising an event. Bearing in mind I had like 4 months because I wanted to do it on my birthday for my 20th. I'm so like OCD, so I was like, let me just do it on my birthday, it'll be perfect. So it was very hard because I was juggling essays and so on. So what I had to do is I had to plan an event and plan a book launch and then, you know, finish my book and get it printed. So when I did that, it was probably the best experience of my life because I got to see my family and friends all together in one room celebrating another creative. And I think that's what's amazing when the community comes together and they kind of celebrate a person for kind of making a big achievement, doing something great for themselves. And for me, it was kind of showing my mum that I was able to do that. You know, my relationship with my mum, like I love her dearly. So for me, when it was coming to that point when I saw like the tear in a parent's eye, like when you see that, you know, you feel like I've kind of made it in life. Like I've made my mum proud and that's all I need. So when I wrote that poetry book, it was all for her and I'm very proud of it. I mean, of course, you always think and you criticize yourself, you always say, you know, could have been better, I could have done better, but I did it and it's something I'm proud of,
And you should be, at such a young age, to actually write an entire poetry book. It's not really common, is it?
I'd say it is difficult, so if you're still in uni, definitely go for something and show your creative side. Like journalism is still quite structured, like I said, and I was kind of getting it became very difficult and I kind of wanted to do something else on the side, so my hobby became poetry and it became something I genuinely loved. And I thought, you know what, I need to relieve the stress that I'm having in the back of my mind and kind of just let my writing flow freely, more so than structure, so that's what I did.
And which skills do you think you have learnt and developed through writing this book? And all your other extracurriculars, to be honest?
I think for me, it's understanding and kind of allowing myself to express myself freely, because for me, it's like, I'm not limited when it comes to poetry, and for journalism, that's what I want to show when it comes to journalism. I don't want to be limited. So I know when it comes to certain journalists, they're very monotone. It's, hi, good morning, welcome to, I don't want to be that. So there's this journalistic voice you need to use and attain, but I don't want to do that. So for me, it's kind of telling a story and being free-flowing with your words. So I learned a lot when I'm writing the book. I learned how to be patient. I think that's the main thing you need to develop when it comes to the media. You need to be patient because it's a constant battle. For example, if you do finish your graduation, it's the next step would be to do graduation schemes. And with that, you'd probably get a lot of rejections, which I have. I've got many, many rejections, but I'm okay with that because if anything, it teaches you and it kind of gives you a better understanding of the real world. And I think that's what I was most afraid of to an extent, but it's a learning curve for me.
I think what you've said about being patient is very, very important, and that will lend itself to any situation in life. So not only, you know, in your experiences, but even as like a medical student, you know, when patients, you know, don't treat you how you'd like to be treated, or if you feel like you're being, you know, overworked, or when you don't even have, when you just feel like, you know, you're so swamped with work, you know, patience is always something very important. Exactly, 6 years. Like for you, 7 years because of you're doing management as well, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a very long course. Patience is a necessity. And even with you, Fatimina, because you did your PhD, and like, do you want to tell us about how you needed to be patient throughout that?
Well, when I decided to do the PhD, my family was just like, nah, you need to stop with education. Just, you know, and I was like, you know, I want a scholarship, you know, I'm getting paid for doing something that I love. And they were like, yeah, but you know, what about you getting a real job and all that? And I was like, that's not why I decided to do science and engineering. I could have done anything else. I could have been doing other things. I could have, you know, not done the masters, open up my startup or whatever and made a lot of money. But for me, and in life, this is where it is. You know, your family pushes you, but it pushes you because for some of them, maybe the drive in life is money. You know, maybe they see happiness in money, and other people see happiness in helping people. Other people see happiness in making something of themselves. So for me, the concept of happiness was more finding myself in doing something that allowed me to be intellectually challenged, and that's and that's the reason why I went for the PhD. And that's something that is difficult when you come out of it, because I still don't fit into the 9 to 5. The 9 to 5 is not what I want to do. That's the reason why I went for the sciences, and that's the reason why I was thinking, you know what, I will open up my own startup at some point, because I'm that person that just likes to work at crazy hours. And I'm sure everyone in here likes doing that. When you love something, you can't not give it your all. You naturally do it, and you naturally do well at it, and that's what people need to understand. And as Faiza was saying, like, even when you do like poetry and other things, like, you gain all these other skills that people don't realize. Like, these are skills for life. There is, a lot of people say, oh, are you street smart, or are you book smart, and so on. Yeah. But there shouldn't really be that, you can be, there shouldn't be that limit. You can be book smart, if that's how they say it, which comes with hard work a lot of the time. It's not, this is something that I say to a lot of people, because during my PhD, I was interviewing master students and so on. So they would come to me and, they would be like, I would really love, to do my master's with you, blah, blah, blah. And you're just like, you can see how much they want it. You can see that there is drive. You can see that there's passion. There may be people that, they may be feeling nervous like this and like that, but you know that there's that sparkle in their eyes,
Yes.
And that's really important, because once that dies off, you won't be able to do as well. And whereas when you enjoy that something, it doesn't matter how much gets thrown at you or how many horrible people you work with or whatever. Ultimately, you will be enjoying what you're doing, so you'll always be doing the best.
No, it's very true. If you ever pursue anything, just a word of advice to all the young people watching this, you do need to try and make sure that you find happiness, or you find meaning, or you identify with what you're trying to do, because that something is going to be most likely what you're going to pursue, or be along the lines of for the rest of your life. And you do need to try and make sure that this is what you want to do. Don't just do it because your friends are doing it. Don't do it because you feel like you're being pressured to do it. Make sure it's something that you want to do, because only then you will find the motivation and drive to actually see it through to the end. But thank you so much for watching, and thank you so much for joining us, everyone. Like, that's been that's been a very fruitful session, to be honest. I think I've learned a lot myself, to be honest. And I hope that our guests' words have been beneficial to you all too. And thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you soon, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum.